Natalie, your relationship with Kyle. So
Yeah.
when you first met him, what was your first impression of him?
Well, I didn't meet Kyle until after he was already bonded out. Um, my first impression of Kyle, just that he was a kid. You know, he's very polite. He's very chill. And I remember I haven't watched a ton of interviews, and I know I've made mentions to specific parts of like the live stream watching the trial and stuff. And I mean, no, I have not watched all of it at all. There are certain
You don't want to rewatch your entire trial with
like 80 hours of it?
No, I mean there were some specific parts that obviously like my friends and family were like linking me to because there were funny like reactions to things. I think the first time that I became aware that this was going on was after Corey's cross of Gage Grosskreutz, because and I, being part of that, I was like, this is going so great, this is awesome at the time. I also wanted to rewatch it because, like, as Alita said, it's like a masterclass in cross. That was such a good cross. And I strive to just be better in everything that I do. And I mean, I was there and got to work with it firsthand, but there's so much to learn by looking back on it.
Yeah.
There more of little things that I've seen, have been after the fact, but I haven't watched. I know Kyle's done interviews. I don't really have anything to say about his interviews. I can say he's got certain obligations that he has to do because he's a person and we had to get this far. And he also deserves the right to tell his story. But in Tucker's interview, I did watch with my family when I was home for Thanksgiving. He brings up the end. I think Tucker had asked him, you seem really calm. And he's like, oh yeah, I got to be calm. I can't control everything. If I freak out, then other people are going to freak out. I'm freaking out inside, but the best thing I can do is stay calm. And that's just how he is. I mean, he's not, and I mean this in the best possible way, they're kind of simple people. There's not really any sort of malintentions. And when I first got on the case, that was something else that I thought, because of just the way the media had been spinning everything, that was too convenient, until I actually met Kyle and I met his family. And they are people that just, it's on the surface. They're not overtly political. They are just try and do the best that they can. And, he's somebody who's also very thoughtful and interested in learning things. I remember at one point in time, and I obviously can't talk about communications about the case, but right. This was just something otherwise, I think he had called me or some other person ma'am or something. And I was like, I love the respect there, but you never call a woman who's not a judge or a police officer ma'am. Like, you call them miss. And he was like very interested in why my opinion was for that. And I was like, well, first of all, because it makes me feel really old, so don't call me ma'am. And there's little things like that. He's very receptive to things. And he, because I spent tons of time with him throughout the duration of the case, but especially during, those 3 weeks, we were driving to and from the courthouse with him, stuff like that. And, we had like lives to live. I was like speaking with family and friends and stuff on the phone. He would hear it on the phone. He's like, what's that person you were talking to look like? Like, I just want to put a face with a name. And he's like, oh, and he's like, just like actually very interested, generally interested in, our lives and things like that.
Which is kind of unique for a kid his age. A lot of kids at that age aren't so concerned with what everybody else is doing. It's kind of their age, their friends, and I'm a mom of a teen who's not
Mhm.
that old, but it really is a unique. Not every kid is that interested in the people
Mhm.
around him.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
imagine
and
how
he
defendants are when you work with them in cases.
yeah. And
Yeah.
he also, like I said, some of the media stuff I think is I don't personally know any arrangements about anything, but my belief is that there are some things he was obligated to do. And something else that has come up a lot is the whole ASU thing and whether or not he was a student in protests and stuff. I mean, what I can tell people is that he had a biology test the day of voir dire and he was freaking out about it. Like, you wouldn't think that somebody would be like, oh, I have to do this college exam because it's like, but no, that was an obligation that he undertook. And he was so proud to be in college that, it was something he was very serious about.
That's wild because of the amount of pressure that he had already being not just in any criminal trial, but in this kind of a criminal trial with this much scrutiny. I mean, it's wild that he still was like, nope, I still have a test to take.
No,
You know,
I like hearing that though, because I think it really paints a picture of, you know what, I need to focus on my life too, and I'm focused on my life too, not just on this trial. And I don't know, that for me indicates some level of deep trust also in the defense team. Like, I'm not the one doing this trial. I'm on trial and I'm focused here. I imagine for a lot of people, focusing on something other than just a trial would help them stay somewhat calm, because
Mhm.
I
that's
can't
true.
imagine being on a trial like that with a camera pointed at your face, and if you yawn or sneeze or scratch your
Oh
nose
God.
or rub your forehead, that it becomes actually national news.
Yes, the yawning especially. I mean, poor kid wasn't sleeping. If you're 18 years old and you're looking at a trial where you might be put away for the rest of the life, are you going to sleep?
I
Plus, I
can't
would
stand a
imagine,
lawyer that's never yawned during trial, especially
yeah.
Yeah.
like Waldenberg.
I was yawning at some points.
I've yawned during trial when I've been the prosecutor doing the trial. I mean, trial
Mhm.
is exhausting and it's not always riveting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I would also imagine that he probably has a lot that he's dealing with, just dealing with the incident itself. I mean, people have talked a lot about PTSD and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
I don't know, and I don't know if if any of that is shareable, but either way, like I would imagine that there's just a lot to deal with that's going to take a while for him to deal with. That maybe kind of helps to, or maybe it doesn't help his whole sleep situation.
Oh man, now I wish that I would have been at my house because I would have had cats on too. I was telling Alita about this beforehand. Is one of the reasons I'm doing this at my office is I have this little cat named Squeakers who talks a lot, hence her name being Squeakers, and has if I can't do Zoom things from home because she will just be like in front of the camera.
No, this is Fred. Fred has a brother that is also a ginger cat named George. Fred likes to be on camera. If I am sitting at my desk streaming, Fred will walk on my soundboard that has sound effects. He will walk on my keyboard. He has exited me out of stream. He is very much a
Yeah,
part.
he DM'd me that one time.
He did the he is very much involved in streaming, and it's one of those things that I'm like, well, you know what, I'm a live streamer and it's from my home and this is my life, but it would be harder on like court Zoom calls to have your cat
Yeah.
walking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, of
Yeah.
course.
Getting back to
Uh,
the question, though, I know you'd asked about the PTSD thing, and I'm not going to talk about his PHI, his personal health information.
of course.
But I was at the trial when he testified. And, there have been different people whose response have been, oh, I didn't see tears. Well, first of all, what definition is these cameras shooting in? I would not expect you to be able to see tears going down his face because that's just kind of one of those things. And
Yeah.
the second thing is, there's so much that gets lost in translation with the mood of a place and an experience when these things are happening. And he, people are like, oh, fake crying, things like that. He, if it's even hard for me to go back and watch it again because it was real. And when you look at it, he's trying not to break down, which, especially if you're a teenager and you're trying not to break down, might also look at the same type of thing that, if somebody's faking, because he's trying to keep it restrained. It wasn't allowing yourself to necessarily experience your natural emotions. And that isn't going to come across, necessarily super well. But I mean, the kid had a panic attack. He had a flashback, and we had so many people reach out to us after the fact that like are, I watched this, I have PTSD. This is, I feel for this kid. And you know, I've said throughout everything, if people know all the facts of the situation, if they watch the trial, I don't really care what your opinion is. Personally, from a personal level, I mean, obviously I want to advocate for my client, but the 12 most important people in the world already found him not guilty. So I really don't, those people are the opinion that matters to me. But if people have watched the trial, who watched the whole thing, who think that he was fake crying, I mean, that's your opinion, but you weren't there.
Natalie, can I ask you a follow-up on that? Because
Yeah.
for me, it rang very authentic, but I've also been in courtrooms and watched people retell like the worst things that have happened to them. And you often can see, they often try to not let that out in front of a jury because it's embarrassing. And
Well, especially if you're 18.
yes, having everyone staring at you is very.
And it was nationally televised.
Being a young man too, that the gender part of that also might have an impact.
And I think also being the defendant in the case also has an impact because you don't want the jury to perceive that you're trying to make yourself a victim. Like there's a lot that goes into that, but being in the room, how did the jurors respond? How did other counsel respond? Because it looked like the second prosecutor, not Binger, who I have very strong feelings about in a negative way. It looked like he was putting his face down and dabbing in his eyes. Like it looked like there were emotional responses in the courtroom, but it's very hard to tell when you're not there.
Okay. One thing, emotional response, I couldn't see Krause's face at the time. I mean, because I was looking at Kyle. I was looking at Kyle and I was looking at the jury. Well, actually, I don't even know if I could see Kyle really at that point, just because of from where I was and where Mark was kind of between the two of us. I don't know if I don't think I saw it when it started, but I could see, but you can feel when the room gets instantly quiet. And it was a feeling type of thing. And I don't think I could see Kyle at first, if I remember correctly, but I think Mark moved and then I could see him. And I mean, my first thought was, I was like, he left his water bottle on the table. Like, right. He was nervous drinking fluids throughout like the whole thing. But, we were worried about him. And the judge was too. I mean, it was a genuine response, and the jurors felt it. I mean, like I said, Joelle and Demetrius, we talked to her afterwards. She's in farther back in the courtroom. The only thing I remember hearing at that time, besides Kyle, and there's always some sort of background noise, is I remember hearing snaps from the cameras, and I could very distinctly hear them because from the two pool photographers, because that was the only noise in the room at the time.
Wow.
Were them trying to take pictures of Kyle and trying to take pictures of Wendy. Is nothing. Wow. No, everything else was just, dead silent.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that you couldn't necessarily get on the live stream because, there's a certain frequency that we get access to, so, but that is, I mean, that's the equivalent of, you could hear a pin drop in the room.
Is, I don't know why, I honed in on that, but when shutters, when you use like the shutter speed, it's opposed to using like, an iPhone, things like that, you can hear it, you can hear the clicks. And it wasn't like something where it's just like you hear one click, like you can hear like all 5 clicks that are like part of the one click. I don't know any better way to describe that. Yeah.
Rapid shutter speed. It's such a distinct noise when it's just like clack, 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 clack. It's very distinct. And in a silent room, it is very loud. And that room looked fairly large. Was it echoey in the courtroom? Because it looked like it had fairly high ceilings.
Honestly, it wasn't loud enough. There were problems with, if you look at some of the reporters and stuff like that, they had these like little black boxes right here. They were connected to headphones. So, and there were never enough of those. People in the back. People in the back always had a hard time hearing things, and they didn't have enough because, I mean, there was a certain amount of, sound set up, but part of the problems with humans is if you're not, and I'm not used to recording and paying attention to this microphone. If you're used to doing that, it's something you pay attention to. But, I don't think, Kyle's concern was having the mic in front of his mouth type of thing. He's telling a story. And
even the lawyers too, there were definitely
Yeah.
times where you would see the court ask them, like, remember, because you're used to doing trials just to a jury, not to a live stream, and not having to like worry that you're at the thing and not bumping the mic with your paper that's flipping over each time. But we definitely heard it. Every paper flip came across on that microphone.
Yeah, and and that was also, there's just a certain amount of background noise because most of the reporters in there and stuff were on their laptops. They're typing, there's people going in and out. There were deputies like pacing the courtroom frequently to make sure that nobody had their cell phones out trying to take pictures of the jurors. There's just all this background noise. But that was like the moment when Kyle that it stopped during that.
Did you guys already talk about the MSNBC and the jury bus? Speaking
just briefly.
Just briefly touched on it, but we can definitely get into it. Let me just make sure before we stop talking about Kyle, because there were a couple interesting questions that I got from people, because I can't remember if I mentioned it earlier, but I asked on all of my social media platforms for questions from people that they had that they would like to see answered, and I got so many great questions. There's one here. Somebody said, so actually multiple people said that they could tell that you believed Kyle just by watching you during trial. One said that you seem to have a maternal sense of care for him and wanted to know if you have kids yourself.
No, I do not have children. I like sleeping a lot. So
that's very fair. Like, that's very fair. And the thing is, with the profession of law, sleep is already literally your most prized commodity.
I'm only 33. Maybe someday. I'm not somebody who looks forward and thinks about things like that. Like, my plans for my future involve more of my professional career and things I want to do, and whatever else happens falls into line is cool. And I'll take it in stride. But it's not, I think a lot of people have a tendency to avoid acknowledging and figuring out who they are. And that's something I've spent a lot of time doing. And I know who I am. I know what my goals are and things like that. And those aren't necessarily dependent upon other people or my status in relationship to other people.
Yeah.
So no, I am not.
That's a very important thing.
Yeah. I know I don't have kids. I have taken care of kids a lot. I was a nanny. After I took time off between undergrad and law school, and I was a nanny. I nannied part-time during law school for extra money. I'm fine. I love kids. I like the elderly. I love, animals. I'm just generally kind of a caring and nurturing person. And
seems like it. I get that vibe.
And he was going through like really tough stuff.
Of course.
And a lot of it was also just, you never know in this situation if somebody's going to leave with you or not. And there's nothing wrong with being kind to people.
Of course.
So,
of course,
and it's not like his mom could be sitting next to him fussing over the whole time. And I think at some points he was getting irritated with me. Like, it's like, Natalie, I'm fine. But, he had other things on his mind, and I was doing it for Mark and Corey too, because, it was a role I adopted myself. What are the things that I can control in the situation? Is there so much that I can't control? Things that I can control is, making sure that there are a couple little things, comfort things taken care of.
Yeah.
Did you already talk about your role with the tech in the case?
No,
not yet. We will get into, because I know that was something that you were very curious about. So I wanted to wait until you were here. So someone else noticed that right before the verdict, that you and Kyle linked pinky fingers.
Oh.
Was that like for good luck, or is there any story to that?
Oh yeah. Not a great story. So, we didn't have a lot of time, between when we found out there was a verdict and getting things ready, and like we had to be ready to go. we basically had like grab bags, because as soon as this was happening, we were getting out. And I didn't get a chance to like hug him upstairs. And this was more like, you know, we're here. That was, I mean, I didn't get my chance to hug Kyle, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to. And, you know, I don't consider my clients my friends because they're my clients, but I care about all my clients. I mean, that's just who I am as a person, is, you know, I'll be straight as hell with you, and I'll be telling you if, you know, I think you're making a good choice or a bad choice. But at the end of the day, it's not my life. And, you know, I really don't hug clients. Often I try not to, just because there's certain boundaries that you need to keep. But, you know, I spent 3 weeks straight just with that kid, that in and of itself. And, you know, it was more of, you know, I'm here. It's a gesture. And I didn't realize anybody could see that either. So
there's a lot of astute observers in this trial. And then when
because everything is streamed, and then I think it's great that people asked instead of interpreting. Everything is streamed, and I think one of the things that stood out to me, especially when trying to like view the evidence, and you saw Kyle kind of next to the judge. I know the media made a lot of it, but as a former DA, there were often times where I'm like, I do not want to be anywhere near this defendant that I am prosecuting. And I did not get that vibe in the courtroom at all, that there was concern about Kyle moving about the courtroom. Of course, he was out of custody, but even sometimes in out of custody cases, there's more distance. And I think that spoke, for me watching, it spoke a lot about the comfort of everyone in the courtroom, and the fact that Kyle had clearly been respectful during the legal proceedings to everyone in the courtroom, because there seemed to be no, I mean, ill at ease with it.
Yeah, I mean, he was nothing but polite and respectful to everybody.